Welcome back, and we are now at the tail end of the course, and you guys should be feeling like experts in public administration theory by this point. All right, I do this review for a purpose. So, what I want really ingrained in everybody are these founding theories. These are really critical because everything else is built on these. And if one day you might want to take a comp exam, the ones in the left column are going to be really critical to be anchored to. The ones in the right column and beyond are still important, but they can't be built without these original concepts. So before you're out of this class, make sure you've made one more pass through the founding documents, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, at a minimum. Make sure that you're familiar with the concept of dual federalism and cooperative federalism, and we're going to revisit that again today. We public administrators would not be here were it not for the Pendleton Act, so make sure you're anchored to that. And what year was it? Yes, 1883. Make sure you're comfortable with Wilson's dichotomy. A core of what we know as public administrators comes from this dichotomy in 1887. Make sure you know Taylor's article, Scientific Management. Make sure you know Max Weber's article on bureaucracy. Goodnow works off of Wilson, so that could be or could not be, but make sure Wilson would be the most important of those two. And then Follett being a very different voice of the time. Make sure that you are familiar, because it's going to come up in one of the readings this week, is Gulick and Poscorb. Make sure you're familiar with the rest of them. I'm not going to go through them all one more time. Make sure you're familiar with the rest of them up through the ones that we've had in the most recent weeks. All right, so this week we're on part 4, and this is from Reagan to post-reinvention. Again, what I would highly, highly suggest, because the articles that you have in this book are oftentimes 2 or 3 page articles based off of books that some of these people have written. And so if it feels like you're coming in the middle of a story, you are. So that you're feeling absolutely correct. But if you read that preface first, it should give you the basis by which to understand the articles a little bit better. All right, so this week we're going to start with Graham Allison in 1980. Now let's remember, founding of the country in late 1700s into the 1800s. Now the Pendleton Act and Wilson's dichotomy is coming in, and we're trying to figure out, we know how they've crafted the government philosophically, but how do we actually run this government? So this now, Wilson was saying, well, we need to be separate from the politicians. Taylor came in and offering some time and motion study types of things. Weber came in trying to get us to where we had this structure, this bureaucracy, and now building and building. We've also been building during this time, say from the 1930s on up, some might say a departure from the Constitution that had most of the police powers or authority powers at the state level, and very few that the states gifted to the federal level, we'll say, to where that almost became a reverse, because now the federal government getting bigger and bigger and more powerful, and we can see taxes going up, more federal taxes going there, so that the federal government could control more and more. By the 1980s, we were trying to figure out, well, how do we manage this massive federal government and this massive state governments in many cases? How are we going to do this? Did Wilson, Taylor, or Weber ever prepare us for this? And these are questions I want you to start thinking about as the next generation of theorists. Have we been prepared? Do our founding theories actually, do they still work? Do they need to be changed? We'll talk about that a little bit more. So Graham Allison had said, and in the early 1980s, we started moving into a period where, we need to be more like business. And this was where we were drawing from a lot of the Japanese techniques on how to manage, and total quality management was coming in, and a number of other things. So how do we do this? Maybe we, government, should be more like business. Maybe we should manage more business oriented. Whenever that comes up in any paper you write or any conversation you come up with, we can't as an academic, you can't go to that without at least referencing Graham Allison. So Graham Allison said, yes, we public administrators are alike, like our for-profit brothers and sisters, but the ways we are alike are all in unimportant respects. Meaning, yes, we do budgets, they do budgets. We do HR, they do HR. We manage, they manage. But the bottom line for business is going to be profit. How much profit do they make at the end? For us, it isn't. We're tasked with taking care of the poor, taking care of the indigent. We're to build roads that are not profitable, otherwise business would do it. We do things that fall to us because the private sector doesn't take them. So in all the ways that we are alike, our for-profit brothers and sisters, all those ways are not the important ways. We build parks for people to go to that don't have to pay any money for it. What private sector would do that? Then the question arises, should we be doing it? So all of this kind of gets tied up in this Graham Allison. So when you read his article, I want you to really think about, how are we alike? Could we be more business-like? We hear that a lot. Or is it really not practical? And again, what we're looking for at a master's level is not to read the article and say, okay, I remember what Graham Allison said. But I want you to read the article and sit back with the book closed for a minute and say, do I agree with that? Would I agree with it and build on it? Would I get rid of it totally? Each of these theories that we're going through are fuel for you to go to that next level, which is what we want to challenge you to do, especially this week. Then I want you to go to Rosenblum's article, and one of the questions that he challenges us is public administration? We can say biology is a science. Let's argue that. We can say English literature is an art. The question is, for public administration, is it an art or a science? Take it one more step, and one of the academic discussions we always have is, what school should we be in, we public administration? And so some universities will have us in the School of Business. Most of us think, but according to Graham Allison, we are not like business, or anything that makes us like business is not, what's important. Some universities will have it in the School of Political Science. Well, but what would Wilson say about that? We are the opposite. We are the flip side of the coin with political science. We're not political scientists. All of political scientists don't necessarily take HR and budget and all the things that we do. Well, so then where do we belong? Cal Poly Pomona has it in the School of Arts and Letters. I actually don't even know what that means, but that's okay. I think Cal State San Bernardino has it in business. Cal State Long Beach has it in the School of, Health and Human Services. Where should we be? When you read through Rosenblum's article, where are we supposed to be? What kind of a art or a science are we? And he's going to be building off of Weber's work, and others. So now you can see in this era, they're building off, Allison's building off of some of Gulick's work and some others. They're building off of our earlier theorists. We now need to build off of our early theorists and our mid-level, mid kind of century theorists and our later theorists. Going back to Graham Allison, one of the things that we have to deal with, and I don't know if you've had this in other classes, is this concept of wicked problems, and wicked being translated as difficult, not wicked as an evil. But these are problems with no easy solution. So if we say poverty is a problem, well, what is the cause of poverty? And then how do we solve it? But every time we try to solve it, it's not right or wrong. It's oftentimes going to create other problems. There's no immediate test for solutions to these problems. Wicked problems have no given alternative solutions. So if I'm saying, the problem is my lawn is too long, well, the solution is go mow the lawn. I may not want to, but there's an easy and simple solution to that. If we need to build a road, well, that's a simple problem. If we need to get from here to there and the solution is build a road, we can go build a road. But when we look at things like obesity in our country, how do we solve that? Well, what is the problem? Is it people don't know how to eat? People choose not to eat? Should we limit their choices? Should we say, oh, if you don't have a BMI of X, Y, or Z, then you can't buy Haagen-Dazs ice cream? Because now we've got freedom and we've got choice and we've got all these other things that play into that. And so solving problems like obesity, poverty, any of those things are very difficult because we can't really define the problem. And depending on how we define the problem, depends on how we solve it. So if I define a wicked problem, you know, the tragedy of a mass shooting, what is the problem? Is the problem the guns? If so, we have one path to take. Is the problem the mental health system? If so, we have another path. Is the problem that mental health is restricted by HIPAA laws? Well, then we have another solution. Is it bullying? Is it radical religious ideology? What is the problem, and then how do we solve it? So if we can't even agree on a problem, and then the solutions take us in 100 different directions, those are what we know as wicked problems. These type of problems are what public administration is tasked to solve, which is very much unlike our private sector brothers and sisters. So this will relate back to Graham Allison's article. This one is not in our book. It's by Riddle and Weber, and we actually do pronounce this one Weber. This was 1973. If you need this information on a wicked problem, you can Google that article. It's real easy to find. Now we're getting into this concept. We're building now in the 1980s off of these earlier decision-making theories. So we've talked about rational choice being an economic model. We talked about Herbert Simon and bounded rationality, putting some restraints on that rational choice model, and Simon's concept of satisficing. We talked about Lindblom's science of muddling through. The other thing that I want to keep drawing your attention to is you should have some flashcards that you're making out of this class. And if every, once a week you're going through the flashcards of all of these people and you can at least get me kind of names, maybe periods of time. The earlier ones, you've got to have Taylor, and on the back, scientific management, and the year was at 1912. And I can't even do it off the top of my head. I can do Wilson, 1887, and so some of them I can do. But you want to make sure that the exact year is probably not as important, the exact title of the article, but at least getting this in context is. So if you hear the name Simon, you've got bounded rationality, satisficing, and you've got kind of period of time. Lindblom, same thing, science of muddling through, what that concept was. There's one that we're not covering in this class. It's an article if you ever want to grab it. It's a good article if you're ever doing any research on decision making, which is Cohen, March, and Olson's garbage can theory. And what they're saying is that they have this very different concept of when you're dealing with problems, people sometimes have solutions, and they have solutions in their hip pocket waiting for a problem to arise. And you'll see that whenever we have these tragedies of the shootings, as soon as a shooting happens, you've got the pro-gun, how can I say that? I don't want to say anti-gun, but the pro-gun control, we'll do that. Pro-gun control group that's going to immediately come up with, okay, there was a shooting, therefore we have to restrict guns. And their policies are already, they're solutions waiting for problems to arise. Same thing with mental health issues, same thing with any of the other issues. So as you're going through with Cohen, March, and Olson, they have these different kind of theories of how decisions get made, and it's very much a departure from how Herbert Simon and Lindblom and the rest of them were talking about it. In the Blackboard, you'll see the video for this week. The Blackboard video is Cohen, March, and Olson. Cohen has since passed. March and Olson are still alive. Olson is, I think, living in Norway. I think he's Scandinavian. But the interview is with Olson. So it's kind of an interesting kind of take on his theory and all of that. But they're both, I've met March before, lovely, lovely men, and had a real interesting take in 1972 on their article. The other one you're going to be reading this week is John Kingdon's article, and he's got what he calls three streams. And this is, again, Kingdon is building off of the earlier decision-making theories, but making it very specific to how decisions get made when setting policy agendas. So he has these three streams. One is identification of a problem, but as we built off of that wicked problem concept, problems are very hard to define. But he argues the more that a problem becomes a crisis, the more likely it's going to get on the agenda. Same thing with policy alternative development. This is the second stream, and then politics. And maybe problem identification and politics might go hand in hand. So this is kind of the swings of the national mood, or what becomes kind of a fad or a phase that everybody is in. So he's going to talk in his article about these three streams of problem identification, policy alternatives, and politics, working largely independent of each other. But when they converge, that's kind of an opening that, if they're all working kind of on their own, that's one thing. But if they all converge at a given place and time, that's when something's going to get on the agenda. So this is similar to a decision-making theory, but it's more of kind of a meta decision-making theory on a larger scale, or a three-dimensional scale, let's say. For Kingdon's article, there is this little YouTube video. It's like 10 minutes long, and it's just a student who's giving a kind of a review of the three streams. Not a great video, actually. She's got a cold, apparently. But it was, out of the ones that I looked at, it was probably one of the better ones on the three streams. So again, as I usually say, this is one while you're folding laundry, have her playing in the background, and it may give you a good kind of edge before you actually read the article. And then the last one is Deborah Stone's article from 1997. Now we're moving up in time again. And again, building on this decision-making theory, but it's the art of political decision-making. So how are these things, how do our politicians decide on budgets and things like that? She talks about measures of effectiveness. And again, if you're dealing with a DPSS or a welfare department, and we say, were you effective? Was your department, your public administration department, effective? What does that mean? Does that mean I gave out X amount of checks? Or does that mean less people are in poverty? So what does this actually mean? What does success really mean? How do we measure this? And when we're dealing with wicked problems, that becomes very challenging. In this time period, the book isn't going to go into this. I want to make a distinction between two concepts that sound very similar. When you're dealing with the Minnowbrook period of time, you're dealing with something that they deemed new public administration. Okay, that was late 60s into the 70s. In the 1980s, we and Europe and many other countries branch into this concept of new public management. So there's two things here that sound very similar. New public administration, Minnowbrook. New public management, different concept. Maybe similar. What they're saying in new public management, which was building off of kind of the new public administration stuff, is that the government should strengthen the steering functions. In other words, the government shouldn't be the engine moving us forward, or what they say, rowing. We shouldn't be rowing the boat. We should just be steering it and allow society to be the engine or the rowing. So when we get here, they talk about steering, not rowing. There are two people in the 2006 or something like that, the Denharts, husband and wife theorists. And then they said, no, public administration should not. So the first one was steer, not row. And then they had said serve, not steer. So they're all kind of building over on top of each other. So again, the Denharts, don't worry about them, but just so you've heard those names, husband and wife. And their thing was serve, not steer, which is kind of building off of this period in the 1980s of steer, not row. All right, so as long as you get the concept, that's all I care about. This was a period where they were devolving authority, again, moving it back from the federal level back to where some would argue constitutionally it should be at the state level. This was a period of we needed to ensure performance and accountability, improve management functions of human resources, optimize information technology, improve quality of regulation, much more responsive. So this wasn't that society was at the mercy of the public administrators. We were supposed to be serving them. There's this is a student project, but there's just 1 minute in it that it's kind of funny to watch. If you click on this link and start this at the 1 minute mark, and I think it's like 1 minute and 15 seconds long, but start it at the 1 minute mark. And it gives you kind of this student's take on what new public management is, and it's kind of funny. So it's a good little break. But again, this concept of that it should be, we're moving it back, especially down from the federal level and then down to the people, rather than the government being this much more pervasive entity. All right, flashback time. I think I gave you this link weeks and weeks ago on federalism. If you do not remember it, this is a really good time to watch this 5 or 6 minutes. I don't remember how long the video is on federalism one more time. And you're going to hear this period of time. I want you to focus on kind of the end of it. Well, focus on all of it, but at the end where it talks about from Reagan to Clinton to Reagan, Bush 1, Clinton, and then Bush 2 and Obama from there, with this concept, and this is now the period of new public management. So this concept of federalism and new public management start melding together. So where you're supposed to be at this point is first understanding and being able to apply all of our early theories. So, and decide, can those theories still work today in 2016, whatever we're in? Do the theories need to be edited? If you could now write an article that says, Wilson was fine in 1887, but it doesn't work anymore. We need to make these changes to it. So what are the changes that you feel maybe our founding theorists have not yet provided us direction for modern times? Or have they? Or are there brand new theories that need to be created that we've never thought of before? So I want you to start thinking more kind of forward thinking, and you being on the cutting edge of where should we be? Where are we? Where have we come from? And where should we be going now? The writing assignment for this week is I want you to focus on Graham Allison's, public and private administration are alike in all unimportant respects. And after reading it, do you agree? And why or why not? In this, I want you to reference or use Graham Allison as a support to whatever you're saying. I think they had wanted 3 to 5 text references, in-text references, and then an additional 3 to 5 in-text references from all the other theorists, or whichever theorists are most apply to how you're going to craft this. All right, so this is just, I can't remember, a couple of pages, I think maybe 2 or 3 pages. But this is really your exploration of Graham Allison along with everybody else. And where are you now with this? Should we be more businesslike? Can we be more businesslike, or is that an impossibility? FYI, most of you are getting this right, but remember if you're using the Shaffert's Classics book, and there's a Wilson article in there, that your citation has to be Wilson, 1887, and then you put that it was in the Shaffert's textbook. All right, so this is, if you go to this link that I have here and kind of scroll down to the bottom, you're looking for an article or something like that in an edited book. So when I scan down, you should have multiple, for let's say the final paper, you're going to have Wilson, Taylor, Weber, you're probably going to have a little Follett, you're going to have all these different theorists, but I should be seeing all of them listed separately in addition to any outside research you've done. But it shouldn't just be Shaffert's, because I need to see the actual articles you're talking about. So if you have any problem with that, let me know, but this web link should get you to where you need to be. Okay, the critical assignment is not due this week, but I want you to start planning for it. And the way that we've set this up is students will select an ethical dilemma. and I'm going to use this word ethical on, it could be any sort of kind of, let's say, conflict or something like that. So I don't want you to get hung up on the word ethical. So students will select an ethical dilemma you believe has roots in the past, present, future of public administration. This dilemma will be clearly and articulated, presented early in the paper. I would say, my suggestion is sentence 1, start with that kind of thesis statement of what it is you want to say here. And develop a literature review that revolves around whatever theme that is. And so, and we'll call it an ethical dilemma. Almost everything we do in public administration has a concept of ethics. So let's say you want to explore something like education, and that people believe that education is a right. Well, is it a right in our country? Well, it's not in the Bill of Rights. It's not in the Constitution. In fact, and it really isn't the role of the federal government. Is health care a right? Well, we've got a Supreme Court ruling on that. But is it a right by what our founding fathers said? Is it the role of the federal government, or is health and welfare the responsibility of the states? And then what would Wilson say? And what would Taylor say? I want you to remember, on any paper you do at a master's level, whatever you're going to frame it with. So if you're going to frame this with healthcare or education or violence or international something, whatever it's going to be, that topic, I don't want to say this, but it's insignificant from my perspective, because all it's doing is it's a bucket or a basket in which to put all of your theories. So the goal on this is I want to see the early concepts and theories. I want to see maybe something from the founding documents, maybe Pendleton. Try to find a way to get Wilson, Taylor, Weber in there. That's always going to be good. And then name your cats Wilson, Taylor, and Weber or something. Then get into maybe some of the, maybe a little Follett, a little Maslow, a little McGregor, any of those kinds of motivational or management types of things. Gulick, make sure you get a PosCorp somewhere in there. And then keep moving up in time till you get to Kingdon and the rest of them. Make sure you're picking people from each era who are going to advise you on whatever this dilemma is that you have. So what would they all say on it? And really what you're trying to do on this is say, have they given me, as a public administration, not me, you, but ask yourself, have they given me, our forefather theorists and mothers, have they given me what I need to move forward in public administration? Or is there something missing? Is there something lacking? So whatever basket you're going to use as your topic, it is just a basket, and I'm not really concerned about the basket, other than it kind of makes sense, and it's a good basket in which to hold your theories. So that's really, so don't go into a lot of research on when Department of Education began or anything on the Affordable Care Act or anything like that, because I don't care. None of that's going to get you points on this. What's going to get you points is using whatever topic you pick and applying these theories. So it's really the theories I'm going to be looking at and the application to this kind of overall dilemma that you're looking at. Should we take care of the poor? Is that the role of the government? And I think we talked in another week that Russia, in order to protect the health and well-being of women's feet, outlawed high-heeled shoes or stiletto heels. Where is the role of the government, and is this an ethical dilemma? Are we the government supposed to be doing some of this? How do we do it? How do we work with limited resources? So you've got a couple of weeks for this, but I want you to start thinking about that. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. The best way to reach me is to text me with the time you're available to call. And this way, if I'm in meetings or something and I miss your call, but just tell me the time that you want to call, and then just call me at that time. I'll try to get back to you. And sometimes I'll give you my home phone or my work phone or my cell phone. But just let me know what time you want to call, and I will do my very best to be there, and we can chat about this. And if you need anything, just let me know. In the meantime, have a blessed week.